Grab a cup of tea or a glass of wine and tune in for Inspired Conversations with publisher Linda Joy. On Tuesdays at 2 p.m. Eastern, Linda creates sacred space for leading female luminaries, empowering authors, heart-centered female entrepreneurs, coaches, and healers. A soulful venue where guests openly share the fears and obstacles they've overcome, wisdom and lessons learned, and the personal journey that led them to the transformational work they do in the world. Inspired Conversations to empower you on your path to authentic, soulful living.
Welcome to Inspired Conversations. I'm Linda Joy, publisher of Aspire Magazine, the premier inspirational magazine for women since 2006. I'm also the 6-time best-selling publisher behind the boutique publishing company InspiredLivingPublishing.com, which is dedicated to giving visionary female entrepreneurs, coaches, and health practitioners a voice and a high-profile media and publishing platform to share their wisdom, enhance their expert status, and bring their brand out of the shadows as a best-selling author. All of my brands, including the show, are dedicated to inspiring women to live their best lives. So welcome to today's show. You know, I don't know about you, but intellectually I've always got it, right, that my body is my temple. But does that mean I have always done the right thing by my body? No, I've been pretty transparent over the years that I've struggled with eating and nourishing my body in the way that I know intellectually that I should. There's always been this disconnect, and that's why I'm really excited today that I'm being joined by Melissa Rapoport. Melissa is a health counselor and food relationship expert and works with people around the world who want to fit into their genes, break the chains of emotional eating, say no to yo-yo dieting, and yes to food freedom, more energy, and increased happiness. She's an international best-selling author of Inspiration for a Woman's Soul, Cultivating Joy, and The Wisdom of Midlife Woman, as well as the upcoming Inspiration for a Woman's Soul, Opening to Gratitude and Grace. I am so honored to be a publisher on these projects because she has so much wisdom to share. Melissa combines her graduate work in developmental psychology with her education and life experience in health and coaching to create powerful programs that result in lifetime change. And isn't that what we all want? I know I can speak for myself that I am so tired of quick fixes. You see them all in all the magazines out there, and after a while you just stop looking, and it becomes frustrating. Melissa is also a third-degree black belt in karate, lives in New York City with her teenage daughters and their beloved pooch, Sammy. She truly believes, as you're about to discover, that anyone can improve their health, fit comfortably into their genes, break the chains of dieting, and achieve food freedom. And today we're going to be talking about how we can leave shame and guilt behind and reconnect to the pleasure of eating. Welcome, Melissa.
I'm so happy to be here with you today, Linda.
Well, I have to say, this is an issue that affects every woman that I know. And there's such a myriad of ways that it shows up in our life, right? For some, it's binge eating. Some, it's under eating, which is my issue. Some, it's not even knowing how to tune in and listen to their body. And in some cases, some women don't even know what foods are the best for their particular body. So let's go back to your own journey, because it wasn't that like one day you said, I am going to become, a food relationship expert. It was your own journey, your own unfolding as a woman that led you to this work that you're so passionate about.
First of all, you hit the nail on the head. I mean, I don't know any woman who hasn't struggled with this. And at the very beginning of your introduction, when you were talking about yourself, you used the word disconnect. And I think that is the crux of so much of what we're talking about. And I think the first time I became really aware of my own disconnect I was probably around 15 years old. And I remember my very best friend in high school, her mom was this extraordinary cook. She was the first person that I knew that had one of those beautiful commercial Garland stoves in her kitchen. And I would go to her house, and there was always this cacophony going on in the kitchen. And there was something very, very nurturing about that. And I think that really was one of the things that lured me to my girlfriend's house every single weekend. Her mom also did a lot of grocery shopping, and she would bring home treats. And I remember sitting at their kitchen table one day, and she had bought, do you remember those chocolate mint Andes?
Oh, my God, yes.
Individually wrapped. Remember those?
Yes.
So she put a bowl of those on the kitchen table, and I was sitting at the kitchen table, and it was like those little candies were talking to me. And I would look at them, and I would eat one, and then I would look at them, and I would eat another one. Well, over the course of probably an hour and a half, 2 hours, one candy led to the second candy, which led to the third candy, which led to a place of, oh no, there's only 10 left, so I might as well eat them all, because once I eat them all, then there's no more temptation. I don't know if that sounds familiar to you at all.
I think every woman on the call right now is bowing her head down going, oh yes, mine was jelly beans. Don't put jelly beans in front of me. So I think we all can relate, Melissa.
And it's just, and there was like this wake-up call for me. And I kept seeing this appear for me over and over and over. Now, I was an athlete, so I would overcompensate with exercise to manage my weight. And my weight would go up and down depending on what season I was in. So if I was in volleyball season, my weight was down. As soon as volleyball season ended, my weight would go up. And so I was on this yo-yo roller coaster ride. And by the time I hit college, going forward 7-8 years, this continued. It would be ice cream. It would be Oreo cookies. It was whatever it was. And then I hit my adulthood, and I had a couple of kids, and my marriage started to implode. And I found that although I had periods of feeling stable, this roller coaster ride with food was paralleled in other areas of my life. And that all started to hit home for me a couple of years after I got divorced, and I was closing my business. And I was watching the equipment from my store being filtered out of the store in the arms of people who came for an auction. And I remember sitting there very distinctly thinking to myself, I see these quotes, these beautiful quotes all over the place that say that you create your world. And I kept thinking, if I'm creating my world, what am I doing wrong that all of this stuff seems to go on this roller coaster ride? And it was through that journey of my divorce and closing my store that I came to the realization that I had to do something different. And that the thing I had to do different was take a stand for myself and take a stand for my health. And what that meant for me was taking a step back and really slowing down and not rushing in to the next decision or the next choice or the next diet or the next business or the next relationship or the next house. That the fast and furious had to slow down so that I was able to allow, you talked about the intellectual, so that I could allow my heart and my intellect to align.
Just say that again, because I think it's so important, and you captured my journey, which means I'm sure you've captured a lot of women right now. You wanted to slow down enough for your intellect and your heart to come back into alignment.
Yes. Yes.
Yeah.
Because I had been going so fast and so furious for so long that there was disconnect.
And I got to say, that word for me really resonates, and maybe that's why I used it, because it's my own truth. For many years, Melissa, and I'm curious to see if you've had clients describe it this way. I think a lot of people with eating issues or health-related issues surrounding the topic of food, we have that disconnect. So for many years, I used to say that I'm me from the head up. I almost felt, and this is especially in my younger years, in my 20s and 30s, that my body was an appendage that I carried around. But that who I was like from in the head up, because, see, I was always in my head and didn't know how to get into my body because of childhood issues and trauma. So for me, there was a physical disconnect. Does that make sense? And
totally.
I have had to spend 50, going to be 54. I've had to spend the last, I'd say more, 15 to 20 years diving into reconnecting that, which goes exactly into what you said, slowing down enough to align the two. Because our soul is housed in our body, so when I'm disconnected, right? So have you heard women describe it, too, that they actually feel a physical disconnect, like they don't even have any idea of what a relationship with their body's like?
Absolutely. In fact, on Friday, I met with a client who told me for the first time in her life she actually sees her body. And when I asked her, can you tell me more about that? She said that and this is a woman in her 50s, and she said that for as long as she could remember, that when she looked in a mirror, the only thing that she saw was her head, her hands, and her feet.
Yeah.
Because she was so disconnected, because she was so unhappy, because she felt so much hatred and trauma and drama toward the other parts of her body.
Well, and I've had enough conversations with girlfriends, Melissa, to know, I think, even though we don't talk about it, maybe not even with our girlfriends, I think a lot of women experience this disconnect.
I believe that to be 100% true. I would say that with the hundreds of women that I've worked with, that there's a lot of pain around their bodies. And the pain comes from lots of different places. It comes from childhood. It comes from media. It comes from relationships. It comes from this imposed, and I not self-blame, but this imposed love-hate relationship with our body.
Yeah, and it breaks my heart, because I have a daughter who's 32, and then I have a granddaughter who is 4.5. And it was my relationship with my daughter is when I knew I needed to heal my body, because she was entering her teens. My body issues, I should say. She was entering her teens, and thankfully, she's always had a great relationship. I remember, Melissa, her at 15, going into the bathroom and getting the music and oils and all this stuff to give herself spa baths. And I'm like, I loved witnessing that, because at my age, I wouldn't even take time to do that for myself. And here she was already having that relationship with the body and honoring it. And that was healing for me to watch that she naturally had it. And I realized, okay, there's a disconnect because I don't have that natural feeling.
Well, I think, and that can be our legacy, right? This is what we can pass on to our daughters and granddaughters and nieces and the young girls and the young women that we have in our lives. It's like I was working with a new mom not too long ago, And I said, well, what do you do for yourself? And she said, well, right now all I have time to do is take care of my child and take care of my spouse. And I said, well, there's this whole issue of self-care, but beyond that, think of what you're teaching your daughter. By not taking care of yourself, by wearing this badge of honor of being the primary caregiver and the very busy primary caregiver, and being so busy that you're sleep deprived and not taking care of yourself, that this is what you're teaching your daughter is important in becoming a woman. By the same token, when we do that for the boys and the men in our lives, we're also teaching them the same message, that it's important for women to put themselves last.
It's so true, Melissa, and I want to talk about that when we come back from commercial break. When we come back, I want to dive into more about this self-care and how we are the models for our children. And we'll be back in a moment with Melissa Rapoport of melissarapoport.com.
Free your mind. Expand your soul. OMTimes Radio. IOM FM.
Inspiration for a Woman's Soul. Aspire Magazine, inspiring and supporting women on the path of self-discovery. Claim your free digital subscription today, which includes access to thousands of dollars of personal development bonus gifts from Team Inspiration partners. Claim your Aspire Magazine subscription today at subscribetoaspire.com.
Are you trying to get from point A to point B and need a little advice? Connect with the counselors at OMTimes Advisors. Whether you're looking for a life coach or a spiritual intuitive, the advisors participating at advisors.omtimes.com were carefully chosen based on their gifts, skills, and professionalism. OMTimes Advisors, connecting you with the best advisors in the business.
Hi everyone, this is Shay Parker, the host of Best of the Best, which airs live right here on IOM Radio every Tuesday night at 8 p.m. Eastern and 5 p.m. Pacific. I'm super excited to bring you expert guest hosts, spiritual discussions, free psychic readings, and so much more. I can promise that you will not want to miss this one-of-a-kind, fun, yet touching, down-to-earth show. Join us every Tuesday night at 8 p.m. Eastern, 9 p.m. Pacific on OTR-FM. This is Shay Parker, and I can't wait to see you there.
The number one reason girls drop out of school in sub-Saharan Africa is lack of access to feminine hygiene products. The Pads for Schoolgirls Project, an outreach of Humanity Healing International, is changing this paradigm by setting up sewing programs at schools, teaching girls a vocational skill, while producing the reusable pads that help keep them attending classes. The girls pay it forward by making and giving pad kits to other girls in need. To learn more, visit humanityhealing.org. Humanity Healing is where your heart is. Free your mind. Expand your soul. OMTimes Radio. IOM FM.
Welcome back to Inspired Conversations. I'm Linda Joy, and right before my break, we were talking about self-care and the importance of being a role model to our children so that they grow up with healthy body images and healthy eating habits. And I'm talking with Melissa Rapoport of melissarapoport.com. So let's pick up where we left off. You were talking about that it's so important that we as women, but also take care of ourselves so that we can become a role model. And, sometimes my daughter will actually, mirror back to me and say, Mom, you haven't gone for a walk in 3 days, or you haven't done this, because she knows that I struggle with that. And I have to remind myself, I'm not walking my talk. So I love that you said that, because it's also showing the boys and men in our lives that we want to be strong role models for them, because they're going to go into relationships with a woman down the road, and we want them to see what a healthy relationship is.
Exactly. That really nails it right on the head. We tend to, I think, unknowingly and unwittingly, we self-perpetuate this lack of self-care. And part of that is all about limits and boundaries. And not wanting to be rude and not wanting to rock the boat and saying yes and wanting to keep everybody happy. And as a result of that, we don't teach the people around us that we have limits and boundaries that protect us and take care of us. And when we allow those lines in the sand to get compromised, in essence, what we're doing is giving away parts of ourselves. And when we give away parts of ourselves, that helps create the disconnect that we feel. Because how can we be connected to the things that we give away?
Well, that's a great way of looking at it. It's so true, because if we're constantly giving parts of ourselves away, one, we're never feeling whole because we're never refilling those spots with nourishment, whether it's soul nourishment, food nourishment. So do you think that's why so many women feel energetically, spiritually, and physically depleted all the time?
I do think so. And that goes back to that conversation that we were having about slowing down. Because in slowing down, it's when we allow ourselves to recognize where it is that we are depriving ourselves, or where we're deficient, or what we need to refill. And so very often with women, when I'm working with women and we're talking about, whether we're talking about taking time for lunch, or remembering to eat, or taking the time to make a nourishing meal, that's also a conversation about limits and boundaries.
That is
Does that
something,
make sense?
It makes perfect sense. It's almost like you're speaking to me, because that's the issue that I have. I am a very creative person. So when and you know a lot of the things I birth and create because you're part of them, Melissa. So I'm in that energy, and 6-8 hours can go by, and full transparency, sometimes 10 hours, and I realize, oh boy, I haven't even taken time to eat something. It's because I'm so into that creative zone. So I've been trying the last year to retrain myself, and that means setting timers to go. And I know that sounds harsh that I have to set a timer to remember to eat, but it's about coming back into my body and out of that creative headspace.
Yeah, exactly. And that's what I will have. I was working with a woman who does voiceovers, and she said the same thing. She's like, I get into a creative place, and she also had a toddler at home. And she said, and it's really hard for me to remember to eat. And then when I do remember to eat, I'm rushing through my food.
Yes.
Well, energetically, right, we're rushing through our food. We're not honoring our body. And that's also part of this disconnect that we've been talking about, because we have disconnected our bodies from the earth, from the life cycle, from our life cycle. And when we take the time to reconnect and think about our food, not as something that we just give ourselves for fuel or energy, but to refocus our attention to the nourishment that's on the plate. And for instance, an exercise I'll give women to do when they're relearning to eat, when they're relearning to find the pleasure in food, is when they put their food on their plate and they eat and they slow down and eat. So it doesn't matter if you're having just a snack, it doesn't matter if you're having a meal, but putting it on a plate and sitting down at a table without the computer, maybe with some nice music, maybe looking at nature, something soothing, is to actually envision that this food that you put in your mouth is now on a journey through your body to nourish every single cell you have.
Like a visualization. In other words, we're visualizing while we're eating.
Right. And that naturally slows us down. And it also naturally starts to make us more attuned to the love of our body. Can you see the big difference between just eating for eating's sake and then eating to actually feel the nutrition going through your body, down through your chest and into your arms and down into your legs and down to your toes and then coming back up again? It's like, wow.
Well, what I'm feeling is you're becoming present, where the woman that you described a moment ago, which I'm raising my hand too, who's eating and rushing, is not present in the moment. They're already thinking ahead of all the other things they need to be doing or feel they should be doing. And that ritual brings us into that moment of being present with ourselves, but also with our food. So I love that because I could feel it as you were describing it. It was like, be really fully here right now. So I'm sure you must say, don't eat in front of the TV. Make a ritual, because I get to say, Melissa, you see, I'm always commenting on your stuff because you are always creating these gorgeous lunches and breakfasts for yourself and take beautiful pictures. I'm like, oh my God, I would eat that. It's just so, it's the presentation. I can see that you walk your walk because the presentation of what you create for yourself, I can see that you have that relationship with your food because everything is prepared with love.
And that's really, I mean, I do believe that presentation is important. Do I do that all the time, Linda? No. I do that most of the time. But I think what has transformed for me over the years is to come to a place where food is actually part of me. It's not something that I do to me. It's not something that that's a vice anymore. It's not something that's used as a tool. That it's really, and I think that's what the work is all about, is coming to a place where food is part of you. And the idea of putting it on a plate and honoring it. If you think back to, and this is really what got me going on a lot of my food stuff that I work with people right now, it's just thinking back to our agrarian days. And I'll tell you what got me really thinking about this not too long ago was Little House on the Prairie. I used to watch that show. I'm sure for some of your listeners, they're like, what? Little House on the Prairie was this show about a pioneer family. And I used to watch this show every week. And it recently, not too recently, a couple of years ago, it came up into my awareness again. And there was this real importance of the land and of the earth. And whenever they sat together at dinner, they said grace. And part of that grace was being thankful for the food that they had on their plate. And it was as if the food on the plate was a gift. So this whole idea for me of food being a gift and food being the thing that we share with other people has really driven the way that I work with people. Because when we can transform our relationship to food, we no longer have, quote unquote, food issues. And so every time you make a beautiful plate of food and you sit quietly for 5 seconds before you delve in and you really look at the textures and you smell it and you enjoy it, that sets the stage for connecting to your life force, connecting to your food.
And I love it. I love how this whole conversation's been about reconnecting, about what happens when we disconnect, and also just allows women to hear that when they're not alone. And we're going to talk more about this when we come back from a commercial break. You're listening to Inspired Conversations with Linda Joy and my special guest, Melissa.
A conscious lifestyle for a mindful life. OMTimes Radio. IOM FM.
Are you ready to experience the unshakable love and unleashed passion you really want? Great news! Discover what thousands of people are doing to transform their relationships in ways they never thought possible. And your partner does not need to participate in the process to enjoy the results you want in your relationship. Relationship expert and Aspire magazine columnist Stacey Martino and her husband Paul are the founders of relationshipdevelopment.org and Relationship U. They have successfully empowered thousands of clients with tools and strategies that really work to transform their relationship. Any relationship. And your partner does not even need to participate for their proven system to work for you. Transforming your relationship is possible, and it begins with you. Take the first step and visit relationshipdevelopment.org today.
Their net proceeds are funneled to support worldwide charity initiatives via Humanity Healing International. Through their commitment to creating community and providing conscious content, they aspire to uplift humanity on a global scale. OMTimes, co-creating a more conscious lifestyle.
This is Terry Van Horn, and I want to invite you to join me for my weekly radio show, Hailing Light, on OMTimes Radio every Wednesday at 6 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. On Hailing Light, we want to bring love, light, and blessings into your world. You can find out more about us at www.healinglightonline.com. Blessings.
Hey America, we need to have a little talk. We've got more food than we know what to do with in this country, yet 17 million kids in America are struggling with hunger. Makes no sense. Luckily, the Feeding America nationwide network of food banks has volunteers gathering excess food and getting it to hungry kids. They're kind of like food angels. Hey, become a food angel yourself by supporting Feeding America and your local food bank at feedingamerica.org. We can't do it without your help. Brought to you by Feeding America and the Ad Council.
A conscious lifestyle for a mindful life. OMTimes Radio. IOM FM.
You're listening to Inspired Conversations. This is Linda Joy, your host, and we're in the midst of an inspiring conversation with Melissa Rapoport, and we're talking about our relationship with food, or the non-relationship with food that we may have, which has always been one of my struggles. And I want to dive deeper into that, Melissa, because I love what you were saying about slowing down, being present with our food when we eat. And the direction the conversation went right before break was that food is a gift, and when we show gratitude for it, we are in real. I think what I heard is we're actually putting that energy into our body, because we're putting that energy into the food, showing love and appreciation. That is then coming into our body to nourish ourselves on every level.
And that's put so beautifully, Linda. Yeah, that's exactly it. We're bringing love and appreciation and gratitude. We energetically are ingesting that when that's the way that we view the food on our plate. So we tend to have, overwhelmingly, I think men and women have a hate relationship with food. We say it's a love-hate relationship, but I really think it's a hate relationship because we are driven by craving. We are driven by evaluating food as either good or bad. And we apply shame and guilt when we do not adhere to our own criteria of what's good or bad. And so we love food when we're adhering to this criteria that we make up about food. And we hate food when we are not living up to our expectations on how we're going, these rules, these kind of arbitrary rules that we've made about food. Does that resonate?
Oh, yes, because that's what it is. It's like, well, I shouldn't have this many avocados a week. I get scripts in my head. Or I should be doing this. Based on what? It's like old stories and scripts that I'm running. So you're saying we have to learn to really re-script.
We have to learn to re-script. And the way to do that is by shifting the way that we think about food, shifting the way we treat food, and reconnecting to the earth that grows our food. We completely are disconnected from how the food is produced to how it arrives on our plate. And so for some of my clients, I'll actually walk with them through a farmer's market and say, let's get reconnected to our food. And talk to the farmers and ask them what goes into growing their carrots, what goes into growing their kale, how do they do that organically? When you start to have these and those are also types of inspired conversations, because we don't generally have those conversations. We're not reading stories about these unsung heroes. And when you start to hear them talk about food in a way that's completely foreign to us, it's like, wow, this is gold. This thing that we're putting in our body that comes from the earth, it's been grown with love and nurturance. And it's up to me to take that love and nurturance and transform it into something that I want to nurture and love my body with. And so it becomes part of a continuum.
So with your clients, you're walking them through creating a new relationship, new scripts, giving them the tools and the strategies to implement it. Because I know for me, it's you slide backwards. And you might have like 3 weeks of doing great, or in some cases 3 days, and then you fall backwards. And so what I'm hearing is you are continually guiding your clients and supporting them in rewriting these scripts, in learning new ways of connecting with their food so that everything starts to shift and becomes their new natural.
Right, so that it gets to a point, Linda, where it had happened relatively quickly. I mean, you think about it. It takes years, right? We've been operating this way for years. And a new way can be learned relatively quickly. And you get to a point where there is no such thing as sliding back, because the way that you think about food has shifted to the point where there is no more good or bad. So going back to those Andes candies that I talked about when we first started talking, I could walk by a bowl of Andes candies for 3 weeks and not be tempted. And then one day I might say, wow, you know what? I really want one of those Andes candies. And I might eat an Andes candy. And I might think, yeah, you know what? That tasted so good. I'm going to have 2 more. And I take out 2 more and I eat them. And then guess what? I'm done. It doesn't lead to the entire bag.
The trigger's gone now. The old story's gone.
The story's gone. The trigger's gone. The good and bad are gone.
I was just going to say, that's what I heard. The judgment of yourself was gone. You didn't say when you reached for the second or third, going, oh my God, I shouldn't be doing this. It was like, no, this is what I want in this moment, but I know the boundaries, the healthy boundaries. And so you've released the judgment, too, about the food, which I think comes as you learn to navigate this whole way of re-scripting.
You know, you talk a lot in your work about the power of choice.
Oh, yes.
Right? And you once these inflammatory foods are, and this is really the beginning, when I just start working with someone, we work on getting the inflammatory foods out of their diet. And the inflammatory foods, I mean, when we talk, that's all everywhere right now, right? Everyone's anti-inflammatory this, anti-inflammatory that, and yet I would say most people don't really understand what chronic or systemic inflammation is. And the way that I explain it is, if you're walking on a road, right, and you step in a hole, your ankle swells. So that's inflammation on the outside of the body, right? There's swelling, there's redness, there's pain. We recognize that because it's on the outside of our body. And walking down the road, we'll do everything that we can to avoid stepping in that hole again so that we don't make our ankle swell. And if we kept doing that repeatedly, someone would finally say to us, why are you stepping in that hole? That's really stupid. You keep getting a swollen ankle. Well, we also have inflammation, swelling, redness, pain on the inside of our body. But because we can't see it, we repeatedly do the same thing to it over and over and over and wonder why we can't lose weight, why we have stomach pain, why we have high blood pressure, why we have metabolic syndrome, why we have all of these conditions that are medicalized in our culture. Most of them have their genesis in the food that we eat, which causes systemic and chronic inflammation. The first thing that I do when I'm working with someone is to help them identify and erase these triggers that they have in their diet. And that's a really important component. And once these triggers are erased, and what we do is we take things out and we put them back in, and we check in with the body. We figure it all out. It's never the same for any two people. That puts them on their journey to food freedom. Because very often it's not about choice. And people say, well, you're choosing to eat that. Yes and no. We're choosing to eat it, but at the beginning of that journey, it's also driven by our brain. And the biggest example I can give is like the effect of sugar on our brain. MRI studies show that sugar activates the same part of the brain as heroin. Well, we know how heroin addicts respond to heroin. They want more. So when we eat sugar, we want more. And we beat ourselves up because we say, oh, I have no willpower, or I have choice. I'm being bad. I'm making a bad choice. But it's really being driven by a different mechanism. At the end of the journey, when you get beyond all those food triggers, and it doesn't take very long, then you're making inspired choices. Then you can choose to have the Andes candy or 2 or 3, and that's the end of the story. You can choose to have a piece of cake at a birthday party, and it's just a piece of cake. And so it's a really empowering way to take back your health and take back your body.
Well, it's really important for our listeners to walk away with that there are layers to this, right? It's not one decision. There's layers, and with working with Melissa or health practitioners, especially one with your background, Melissa, which we're going to talk about when we come back from break, really can support you in making those right decisions. And we'll be back in a moment.
This is OTR-FM, part of the IOM Radio Network.
We can all use a little more peace and joy in our lives. Don't you agree? Counselor, best-selling author, and self-nurturing expert Kelly Grimes of CultivatingPeaceandJoy.com is passionate about empowering overwhelmed and exhausted women to live with more peace, joy, and meaning through the practice of self-nurturing. Through her experience working with individuals, speaking, providing workshops, and teaching professional and leadership development to forward-thinking organizations, Kelly knows that nurturing peace in the world begins from the inside out. That's why she created the free Cultivating Peace and Joy mobile app that brings you beautiful self-nurturing reminders, guided meditations, empowering practice tools, and daily prompts with an inspiring question to guide your daily self-nurturing practice. Download your free Cultivating Peace and Joy mobile app today at cultivatingpeaceandjoy.com.
OMTimes Magazine is one of the leading online content providers of positivity, wellness, and personal empowerment. A philanthropic organization, their net proceeds are funneled to support worldwide charity initiatives via Humanity Healing International. Through their commitment to creating community and providing conscious content, they aspire to uplift humanity on a global scale. OMTimes, co-creating a more conscious lifestyle.
You're listening to OTR FM, part of the IOM Radio Network.
Welcome back to Inspired Conversations. This is Linda Joy, your host, and right before the break, I was talking with my special guest, Melissa Rapoport. We were talking about the importance of making choices based on a whole new way of making decisions, right? Making educated decisions so that we can nourish our body. Well, Melissa, you know what I want to talk about in this last segment is what you think is the single most powerful thing women can do to improve their nutritional health, something they can do tomorrow.
I think the number one most important thing is to get sugar out of one's diet. Processed sugar, not sugar from fruit, not the sugar that's derived naturally in fruits and vegetables, but actually the sugar that's in our packaged goods, the sugar that's added to things, is the number one most powerful thing that we can do as women and for the people in our lives. So if there's moms listening in right now, getting the packaged sugar out of the lives of your children will transform your health and their health.
And it's so funny because it's so insidious. It's in everything. And probably 2 or 3 years ago, I kicked sugar's butt, I like to say, and got it out of my diet. And the last 20 pounds that I had been carrying for probably 15 years, it was 20 pounds I couldn't get rid of, dropped within, I think it was a total of 7 weeks. I dropped 19 pounds. It stayed off since then. But here's the big thing that really shocked me and shocked my doctor is I dropped my cholesterol by 70 points, which it had been slowly spiking for many years, and actually that's why I did it. Now, here I am right now, sugar's back in my diet. And I've been feeling the nudge, and there's certain days that I monitor it really well, but I've been feeling the nudge. It's time to go clean again. And because I know intellectually, like we talked about at the beginning of this conversation, we may intellectually know something. Like I know sugar is an inflammatory. I know, but I get it. And I think I speak for many women, we fall into those traps like you were talking about throughout this conversation, Melissa. And it snuck its way back into my life and into my diet. So thank you, because I believe everything happens as a sacred reminder. So I think the way this conversation went today was, okay, Linda. In fact, the angel cards I keep drawing the last couple of weeks, time for a cleanse. And I'm like, I know what it's talking about. It's talking about a sugar cleanse again.
It's there's so much research that talks about how sugar is really the one component that underlies so many medical problems. And you mentioned cholesterol and how even your doctor was shocked that it dropped. And that's because so many doctors are not they're part of that. I don't want to. I have wonderful doctors in my life, and I'm so thankful for the doctors I have in my life. There are many doctors who medicalize nutrition. They're not taught in medical school how to impart nutrition information. And so they are very often shocked at what happens to one's body when we remove sugar from it. And the World Health Organization and the American Medical Association both say that we should be eating no more than 24 grams of added sugar a day, which is equal to 6 teaspoons. You can get 6 teaspoons of sugar in one nutrition bar. You know, look at the sugar grams on a Cliff Bar, or I don't want to start naming brands, but just look at the nutritional panels of the foods that you eat that you think are healthy, and see how many grams of sugar they have in it.
And that's so great to know. So I like having that number. 24 grams of added sugar or less per day is what we want to aim for.
Yes.
And that's so doable. Just to have that number in front of you gives you something to bring into your awareness, right? Because if you don't know the number, it's so easy to go, oh, that's a nutrition bar, it's okay, or this ice cream is low fat, that's okay. So it's having that number really brings an it helps us be accountable, I guess, in a healthy way.
I think it's really key. You used the right word. It's awareness. We don't realize how much hidden sugar is in our food, and we think, oh, yeah, I was working with a woman. She came to me and she's like, I just don't know what's going on. Maybe it's because I'm perimenopausal, but I can't seem to lose this weight, and I eat really healthy. I think my diet's really clean, and in fact, I would say it's almost perfect. Well, when we started adding the grams of added sugar she was eating a day, she was shocked. She was like, I had no idea. And so that's really a powerful thing that one can do for herself, is to start recognizing how much added sugar is in the diet and reducing it.
And that is going to be my next step. So I'm going to take the Melissa challenge and start consciously choosing where my sugar's coming from. Because if I didn't have that number in front of me, I would still be going blindly. So thank you for sharing that part of it, that number with us, because I think it's so important to bring into our awareness. We have a few moments left, Melissa, before our time together comes to an end. And one of the things I wanted to bring up that I really think makes you so gifted at what you do is you have this great combination of your graduate work and developmental psychology with your education as a health and nutrition coach to create this sacred container filled with expertise to help women heal their relationship with food. So that's a powerful combination. Have you found that, your life path has brought you to this day to go, aha, so that's why everything unfolded. So these two parts of yourself could merge so you could serve women at that higher level.
Well, absolutely. I mentioned early on that part of my journey was when everything started to fall apart. And at that time when I forced myself to slow down, I was going to jump back into school to finish my PhD in developmental psychology. And I thought, wait a minute, do I really want to write a dissertation? Am I really going to jump back into this program and then a year from now think, oh, what have I done? Just slow down. And when I slowed down, this nutrition and coaching kept popping up for me. And when you're driving around and you're thinking about buying a red car, and then suddenly you see red cars everywhere.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, so health and nutrition kept popping up. And I thought, okay, Okay, I'm hearing you. I'm not jumping. I'm staying slow, but I'm hearing you. And it finally dawned on me that I could take my love of developmental psychology and marry it, in essence, with health and nutrition. And that would allow me to help women really uncover the underlying things, stories that are fueling unhealthy choices.
And I think, and I believe, Melissa, that's what sets you apart. And I want to, as we come to a close, I want to encourage all women that are on this call to visit Melissa at melissarapoport.com. And on the page that you are accessing today's show, you will see the links everywhere to connect with her, because this is a gift that you give yourself. Getting healthy is a gift that you give yourself, but it also ripples out to everyone in your family. So thank you for being here, Melissa.
Thank you so much.
Oh, you're welcome. It was such an honor to share this space with you again, and I want to thank everyone for joining me for Inspired Conversations with Linda Joy. Listen in every Tuesday at 2 p.m. I will see you next week. Until then, choose love, choose joy, choose happiness.
Thanks for listening to Inspired Conversations with publisher Linda Joy. Join our sacred space every Tuesday at 2 p.m. Eastern and meet leading female visionaries, empowering authors, heart-centered female entrepreneurs, coaches, and healers. Inspired Conversations with Linda Joy is a soulful venue where guests share the obstacles they've overcome, along with wisdom and lessons learned on their personal journey that led them to the transformational work they do in the world. Inspired Conversations to empower you on your path to authentic and soulful living.